Hi, everyone. Welcome to this History Day 2022 workshop. My name is James Scott. I'm an archivist at the Sacramento Public Library. Over the next few minutes, we hope to take you through some tips and general guidance for how to be successful with your History Day projects. Joining me will be Professor of History at Sacramento State, Chloe Burke, Sacramento State Librarian, Emily Merrifield, and Sacramento State graduate student Alex Smith. For information on upcoming drop-in sessions, help sessions with History Day, you can go to www.sachistoryday.org for any information on dates and times. So with that, thank you for joining us. Good luck with your projects, and we can't wait to see you on History Day. Thanks so much.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first Sacramento County History Day Library Research Workshop. My name is Chloe Burke. I'm a professor of history at Sacramento State, and I've been involved with History Day at the county level for a number of years now. I've been a judge, and then I've been working with the librarians here at Sacramento State and in the Sacramento Public Library to provide these research workshops to help you be successful in your National History Day endeavors. So this year, the topic of the National History Day competition is debate and diplomacy. Debate and diplomacy in history. That could pretty much talk to all aspects of history. So do not feel confined at all by this topic. This really is a topic that will allow you to explore all facets of human life in all time periods. Debates are formal or informal meetings. Sometimes they're a couple people, sometimes they're entire nations. Involved diplomacy takes a variety of forms. This and more information can be found in the theme narrative, in the theme handbook provided by the National History Day website. And I think it's a good place to start. The National History Day website this guidebook provides lots of useful information, a nice exploration of the topic from a variety of perspectives. And there is also, I think, a really great website that Ken Burns has put together, sampling his decades of work in creating documentary videos, called Unum. And these are nice short videos on a variety of topics that are all inspired by this theme, debate and diplomacy. And I think you'll really enjoy them. I watched one. Anyway, there's a whole bunch on this website that are, I think it's a fun exploration, a great way to get inspired by different topics. And they're nice shorts, and they introduce you to some key figures, some historians' perspectives, and I think give you a real sense of the diversity of topics that you can choose for your National History Day project. Minimum, you want to choose something that you really want to know about. Don't pick something because somebody else tells you that it's a good idea. Pick something that you really want to know about. You can make it work. We'll help you make it work. And also that people at the time were excited about, right? This is an argument. So people are really getting worked up over something. This will allow you to tap into sources, primary and secondary sources. So you want to make sure that it's a subject that people were inspired by, to argue over at the time, and that you would like to learn more about. And you can pick a subject that may seem very familiar, such as the Delano Grape Strike. This grape strike is the event that brings Cesar Chavez, who's a longtime activist and Dolores Huerta, who's also a longtime activist, by the time that this event happens, but they rise to national levels of importance as a result of their organizing role in this grape strike. It is situated in the 1960s, and so this is a time period of upheaval in American society. It's a great topic because of the context, this broad context of change. There's a lot of debates happening in the United States in the 1960s, and equity, labor, work, racism, who gets to be an American, what are appropriate forms of debate, right? Who should get to say how people live, how they work, who is an American? This is all part of the grape strike. And it's a nice long scope, 1964 to 1970. It's local, right? It's in the Central Valley. It's also local because people are protesting their local Safeway. But it then becomes national. You see in this picture, you've got Robert Kennedy, and it ends up having an international dimension. And all of this is brought to bear to really be a success for the United Farm Workers. However, there are multiple perspectives involved in this case. So the companies, the growing companies, the growers aren't going to necessarily feel like this is a success for them, right? So in your research, looking at multiple perspectives and why wouldn't they think it's a success? Like that's what we do as historians, is we try to inhabit the perspective of diverse individuals coming into this topic. And then what happens afterwards, right? What are the successes in the immediate and the long term? Remember, you need to think broadly about your topic. Look before 1964. Why is 1964 the date when the strike really begins? What's happening before? Why are grapes even important in California, right? I mean, you could ask these big subjects to get yourself going. And then what happens after 1970? Because we know that the status of labor for farm workers, the conditions of labor for farm workers in California are far from ideal. So this is an issue that continues to be an important one today. So this is a good topic for all of those reasons. Now, as whatever your topic is, we are here to help you with your research. This is a picture of the Sacramento Public Library Central Branch in the center of Sacramento City. This is where James Scott, the librarian who began this quick little video for you, was located. He was in the Sacramento room, which is on the second floor there. We invite you to join us for our next Zoom library research workshop. And this is really kind of our kickoff research workshop. This is an opportunity to get started with your research, to help you. We will help you in refining your topic, in figuring out how to ask historical questions about that topic, and to find sources. So to move from topic to question to sources, and begin to sketch out how you are going to tackle and organize your research. How to find quality primary and secondary sources using the library, using Sacramento Public Library. Our goal is to make sure that everybody has a library card. But as you will see in James Scott's piece, at the end of this video, there's so much that you can do with the Sacramento Public Library. It really is a way into internet research, as well as research in sources that are held in the public library. And developing that research plan is very, very important. Emily Merrifield is going to get you started with that today. And Alex Smith is going to help you see. They're both going to show you some ways to find primary sources using the model of the Delano Grape Strike. So I welcome you to National History Day, whether it's your first time or this is your fourth or fifth time working on a National History Day project. And I hope to see you on November 7th in Zoom.
My name is Emily Merrifield. I am a librarian at Sacramento State University, and I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about coming up with some keywords, some helpful tips and tricks that'll help you come up with those types of keywords when you're doing your research on your projects. So the first thing I'm going to do is share my screen so that you could see a concept map that I use a lot with students who are doing research. And I think it can be really helpful for you as you're thinking about what types of words you want to put into these databases or archives, or even when you're doing Google searching. It can kind of help to think about different aspects of your topic you may want to look into and prompt some ideas for keywords to include in your searching. So here we have this concept map worksheet up on the screen, and you can see it's got 4 corners with different prompts, different things to think about and jot down as you're kind of brainstorming. So right over here on the top right, we have people, specific groups, organizations. Those are going to be important things to think about and to include in your searching. And then, of course, down here we have places. So that is definitely going to be important when you're thinking about the locations and different landmarks that might be included in your topic. We also have time periods. Maybe there's specific events that you want to look into. So that will be important to think about, as well as synonyms, words that experts might use. And that just kind of means, you know, if you're looking at some more academic sources, there might be, you know, ways that researchers are referring to things. So you might want to think about those and jot them down as you see them, as well as some related topics. So you might have, you know, the words of your topic in mind, but there might be different ways to refer to them, or just some related concepts that you might want to think about. So I know this can be kind of hard to all do, you know, right on your own. And so one thing that's really helpful for coming up with all of these different words that you want to jot down is just doing a Google search and looking at what comes up there. So what I'm going to do is go over to a Google search and do a search for the UFW Grape Strike, which is the topic that we were working with as an example today. So here, right off the bat, we see that Delano is the name of the place where it occurred. So that's definitely going to be an important word to write down, because we kind of had in our head what this was, but maybe we want to be more specific to what it was actually called. And then we also, even just looking at the questions, you know, people also ask that Google provides can sometimes help you. So the first one talks about the fact that they're Filipino farm workers, organized as the Agricultural Workers Organizing Committee. You might want to, you know, write that type of information down. They're protesting. Protest might be a great word. Poor pay and working conditions is very important to this topic. And so that might be helpful to write down. And then, you know, there's even another one you can pop down and just say, oh, okay, so words like boycott instead of strike. Maybe I want to write that as a synonym or a related word, or even the term social movements, and recognize that you're talking about the 60s and the 70s. So those are some things that can just be helpful to write down so that you know you have them, and you can always include them if they're going to be helpful in your research. As we scroll down a little bit, you can definitely just pick up some words you're seeing in some of these titles of web pages that are coming up. Of course, you can always go into these sites and see what you can find. But right now, we're not looking for sources. We're just looking for keywords and things that are going to be important when we start our research. So one place that can be really helpful for that is Wikipedia. You might not want to include Wikipedia itself as the source of your information because, you know, it's not necessarily considered an academic source, but you can actually find some great keywords and some ideas of things to look into once you do get into some of those archival sources. So if we click on the Wikipedia article, we're brought up with some very basic information at the beginning, and then we see there's lots of other information going down the page. So right at the top, we're seeing these different organizations that were included in this historical event. And so we can kind of hover over them and find a little bit more information, but really just jotting their names down for now is what we're going to do so that we know that those are the groups that are involved in our topic, and we might want to learn a little bit more about them. Even keywords related to grassroots efforts. So the consumer boycotts, marches, community organizing, nonviolent resistance, those might be important terms that we might want to include in further research that we do. You can also find some information about just, what locations and landmarks might be important for this topic. And this one actually has a picture here of the place called the 40 Acres, which was the first headquarters of the United Farm Workers Labor Union, according to this. So you might be able to find even more photos of this location once you get into some of those digital archives and find really interesting photos. Maybe you can find one with, these organizations in them. So just kind of jotting those down and remembering that you want to research them later can be helpful. And then down here, keywords related to the impact of the strike might be really important. So you might want to kind of skim through here and see if there are things related to what they were working for, what they actually got out of this, and kind of, jot those down so that you can include those in your search later as well. And then last but not least, the nice thing about a Wikipedia page is all the references at the end. And so there's tons of articles here. You might not find all of them useful, but you might find a few that might help you out that you want to save for later. For example, there's even these newspaper articles like this one from the New York Times from 1970. So that might end up being a good primary source if you want to make sure that you know about that so that you might want to use it later in your project. So things to look out for there, keywords, ideas, sources that you might want to get to at some point. Wikipedia can be very helpful for that. And like I said, when we go back, you can always kind of look down through the rest of these. You can go down to related searches and see what words are going to be useful. You can just anything interesting you see, just jot it down. Doesn't mean you have to use it, but at least instead of just having UFW grape strike in your head, you have all these other words that you can include in a search in addition to just that main topic term. So those can be really useful just to do first before you do any sort of, in-depth research. Another thing I wanted to share with you is the fact that we have a online research guide available to you for History Day for this year. So it is at the URL csus.libguides.com/History Day. And what you'll find here is this is just sort of the homepage, and it has a link to our local History Day information. We also have a tab for information on the Sacramento Public Library, because that's going to be a great place for you to do some research. You're going to hear from a librarian from the Sacramento Public Library as well, and he's going to share all the different resources that you have available to you. And these are just some videos to refresh your memory, and also how to get a library card. And then the Digital Archives websites tab has lots of links to California Digital Archives. There's National Digital Archives on here, and then some world history resources, including archive.org, which is a really good one. So these are just here for you to, include in your research. They're great resources. Librarians really like to use these for recommending research to students and anyone doing research, especially these California local resources. So we're going to go to one today, and I can show you how it works really quickly. And then the last tab, called Research Tips, has some, worksheets and things you might want to think about as you're doing your project. And we'll be using these in future workshops. The concept map worksheet that I was just showing you is the first link here if you wanted to access that for yourself. So let's go to the Digital Archives tab again. And I just want to show you an example from one, which is called Calisphere. So this is a website that provides free access to over 1 million unique and historically important photographs, documents, artwork, diaries, oral histories. So lots of different primary sources on this site. So I'm just going to click on that so that we go to that website. And this is what it looks like. And you're just going to do your search right here in the search box in the middle. And I'm going to include the word Delano Grape Strike, because I learned from my Google search that's what it is referred to. And so that's how I'm going to phrase it. And we'll just see what comes up. If I don't get enough, then I could always use different words, and it's a little bit of a trial and error process. But hopefully we'll get some good ones here. And as you can see, it's telling us that we have 373 items. Doesn't mean all of them are going to be perfect for our project, but we just kind of have to look through and see if there's anything interesting that we'll be able to use. And it looks like there's a lot of photos, a lot of people who were involved. We have black and white photos, we have color photos. So a lot of things are coming up for our topic. If you just click on one, this one looks like it's saying it's one of the leaders of this particular organization. And you can come down and get a little bit more information about where this information is coming from. And you can see right here, it says get citation. So that could be really good. Always remember to try to look for something that says citation or cite, because that means that you get all of the information that you're going to need when you create your bibliography. So this is a really great way to make sure you have all that information, and just copy this and paste it into whatever notes you're keeping. And then you'll know that you can create that citation and let all of, the judges and everyone looking at your project know where you got this photograph, who it is, where it was taken, all of that stuff. So there's lots of different ones. These come from different collections, so it might look a little bit different. Each one you click on obviously is going to have different information. Again, we have the get citation over here. And then sometimes you'll see this view source image on contributors website. So that means you're actually just going to the site where this picture actually lives, where Calisphere got it from. So now they also include a citation here. So if you don't see a citation on the other page, you can always come to the actual location of the contributor and see where it is. And you might get a little bit more information, maybe a better description of what this particular image is. And then the file is here for you to be able to download it. So these are all free, available for you to download these images. So that is an example of just one of the digital archives that you have available to you. As you might remember looking at this list, there's lots here. So you have a lot of information on this page that you can use for your research. So good luck with everything. I hope that you find this information useful and that you are very successful in your research.
Smith. I am a graduate student at Sac State. I am getting my graduate degree in public history, but I have a background in anthropology and museum studies. Public history, for those of you who may not know, is basically very similar to what you guys are doing for National History Day. It's a way of showing history and teaching history to the public in exciting ways. So whether that be working in a museum or working in an archive where you can pull things out for researchers or other people who want to view the material that you're looking at. So I'm going to help you guys find some kind of alternative sources, either in the physical realm, if you can actually visit them, because this is the subject that we've chosen. The Grape Boycott is a California based movement, as well as also helping you look at either these museums or historic websites. So I've already done my Google search, and I just have some of the best results for you guys, and I'm going to try to show you how I found more information from the initial Google search. So when I first started, I just typed in Great Boycott Museum. I'm very comfortable with museums, so that's what I ended up looking up. And the first thing that it led me to was the Contemporary Jewish Museum. Now, I believe that the Contemporary Jewish Museum is not something that you would probably be able to get to. It's not local, I believe. Let me try the about. Let's double check. Jewish Museum, because I know there is a Contemporary Jewish Art Museum, but I believe that is in San Francisco. So let me double check. Oh, this is the one in San Francisco. So that might be an option. I believe that their display on Cesar Chavez is not actively open, and it looks like this is just kind of a contributor article. So this is a contributor of the name of Qianjin Montoya. Qianjin. I'm going to try. And I'm going to actually look up her name and keep that just in the back of my mind as a reference, because one of the ways that I think that you might be able to get some different information would be to, Google these people's names and see if you can actually contact them and email them or message them to ask them some questions, because I have read this article. It is a firsthand account of someone whose parents were protesting were grape boycotters, and so they lived in a household that was very active in the boycott. And they are an assistant right down here. It's got the information. She is an assistant curator at the CJM. So while you may not be able to actually go and see the exhibit, you might be able to contact someone. So second is when I first Googled, I tried Googling Grape Boycott Museum Sacramento because I'm in Sacramento, and I was hoping that I could find something a bit more local. And that led me to the Sacramento History Museum's Facebook page. And so they had a backdated article that, they just sometimes these museums are very active on social media, and they like to share, things that were happening on this day years ago. So it had some information. It had this picture right here. I don't know if it's going to let me zoom in. Probably not. It had this picture right here, which deals with the Delano, the march from Delano, which is a 340-mile launch. And so I was interested in the picture, but I was also extremely interested in the fact that it had a source and that it was from the UC Merced Library and Special Collection. Now, I'm actually originally from Stanislaus County, and so I'm very familiar with UC Merced. It's the closest UC to where I lived most of my life. So I'm very familiar with UC Merced, so I got really excited. So I ended up looking up UC Merced Grape Boycott just to see if they had any information that would be a little bit more exclusive. Now, I believe Cesar Chavez did walk through Merced, as well as Turlock, which is the town I grew up in. So it makes sense that there's some local history. And Turlock and Merced are about an hour and a half away. So it's not entirely unfeasible if there was actually information there that you could actually go and see, that it wouldn't be a ridiculous notion to try to go and visit it. So when I Googled UC Merced Grape Boycott, it ended up giving me this website I'm going to say CARA, I'm not sure if it is, CRARA, and CRA stands for the California Agricultural Resources Archive. So I got really excited and I started to look through like their publications and stuff. Most of it is just kind of like farmers' almanacs that are like how to grow grapes in these sort of, or not even grapes, just like all sorts of varieties of agriculture in different areas. So it's not necessarily the best resource, but if you really want some like firsthand accounts of things that were being published in the time that you're looking for, this might not be the worst example. I talked about it before, but these archives, colleges also often have a lot of extra information that's maybe not so available to the public. So CARA has a really nice timeline right here of the entirety of like social movements in California architecture, including, if we go to scroll down here to about the 50s, you can start with the Rosero program, which authorized American citizens to take temporary agricultural work, as well as the Agricultural Workers Union Organizing Committee was formed. And so it's got some information based on that. It also has got some really nice pictures. And additionally, it's got the source of the pictures, which is really nice. So it's kind of got a little description, and then it's got where that picture was from. And that means, and usually these are like libraries, special collections, or universities. So then you can actually find additional resources from clicking on these links and finding out where that collection actually is. And it's also, got a better version of the picture if you want to use that in your presentation. All right. So after CARA, I just started also. So some of the most common search terms that I used were trying museum, historical monument, and eventually memorial. Especially if this stuff is relatively deep in the past. Memorial might be is a really good option if someone maybe died during the course of whatever you're looking for, because there usually are, they're a little bit different than like a monument, which is a bit more of an informative sort of structure, while memorial is something that usually has something to do with mourning. So when I ended up trying a bunch of different search terms, including Delano Grape Strike Historic Monument. And when I started looking that up, I found some, not necessarily historic monuments, but more like artifacts. So I did find an article on the, so some of the actual historic sites at the 40 acres in Delano. So this has a list of all of the sites that they have either the United Farmer Workers, actually have like at their at the 40 acres site and in Delano as a town. They've got all these different plaques, and it's got information about all these places. Now, Delano is not close. I ended up looking it up. Delano is about, it's probably going to give me some sort of range. Delano, California. Oh, no, that's Delano, Las Vegas. I don't want that. If I hit directions, yeah, it's about a 4-hour drive. So it's not really something that you could potentially like plan a longer trip, but it's not something that you could just day trip to the same way that you could to like UC Merced. All right. So when I was looking for the Delano Grape Strike, because that keyword kept coming up in all of the things I was looking at, so I decided to actually just search that term. It led me to, there is the article right here, which is from the United Farm Workers. So that's a good, reference because it's straight from the organizations that are basically our source, which is, so yeah, this, I believe, a very similar article. Yeah, so this is a good rundown, and it's a little bit more reliable because it is from the people who actually did it, did the boycott, but it additionally led me to some very interesting links from the, because if you look right here, one of these is from nps.gov. Now, .gov websites are generally more reliable because they're, government funded and basically approved, and usually these these kind of government sources are fairly well vetted. So that means there's people who are working for the government who are literally like fighting over every word or what information is included and what information is omitted, because not every article can have all the information, otherwise it'd be the world's longest article. So the Delano Grape Strike led me to the National Park Service website, which has the National Park Service has if it's either a national or state park or monument, they will have a link for it, which is why when I search, I had to do a project where I had to talk about a lot of these things. So I have things like dunes and dry creek and stuff. But it does look like right here that it has a virtual tour of the monument. So if you can't get all the way down to Delano, it also has got some other, like, technically it's got some current conditions. So, updates about COVID and such, but it's also got information about the whole history, which is super exciting, as well as some like some pictures of when it was founded in 2008. It's also got, there's the Cesar Chavez National Memorial. It also has information on the 40 acres, and it's got a picture of the plaque that is that designated it. And it's managed by the National Chavez Center. So sometimes the sites are managed by like the actual, park rangers and stuff, but most of the time they're managed by an outside source. And this one was by the National Chavez Center. So I ended up clicking on that and finding the National Chavez Foundation, which has a history on Cesar Chavez, and it's got some very nice, useful links. And I decided to, I thought this was a really good information, but Cesar Chavez is deceased. He died, I believe that information is here. Passed away in 1993, so before I was even born. So I decided to try to find some more names. I ended up continuing to look for Delano and Delano Grape Strike, including museum, and I found some information on the Digital Public Library, and this has a bunch of flyers that are like original as well as pictures that are super useful. Like it's got reports about who was being employed at these times, as well as text from speeches and flyers, and so it's some really good just visual reference, as well as potentially stuff that you can read and get a real feel for what was actually going on at the time period. There was also lots of records of protest buttons, which makes sense because buttons are small and easy to distribute. You can make a whole bunch of them and then get distributed. So a lot of different museums, there's at least 2 in different Smithsonian archives. So this one is at the National Museum of American History, and then there was also one that was found in the Smithsonian American Art Museum. Now this is a poster, so it's a little more artistic, and Google Arts and Culture is a really good place if you're looking for actual artwork, because lots of museums make an effort to upload their entire collections into Google Arts and Culture. I also found some posters at the Oakland Museum of California, and I don't believe they are on display at the moment, but it does seem like they do a lot of California history as well as a lot of local Oakland history, and so you might want to keep an eye out on some of your local museums just in case they're going to have an event or a exhibition that's related to your topic, because lots of people are very passionate about these topics, and it's really good local history. All right. So yeah, so additionally, the MPS had this entire series on the road to Sacramento, marching for justice in the fields, including an article on the Workers United. Now, this was a whole series that you can see right here, series home. The road to Sacramento, marching for justice in the fields, and it's got a whole bunch of articles. And again, these articles are really good because they're vetted. But at the end of each of these articles, they have a bibliography, and that's really exciting because the bibliography is basically like, you can almost look at it as a reading list of like books that talk about this subject. So you can look at this bibliography, look at the title, look at the author, and you can then kind of just look for that book either in a physical form, like going to your local library, or in a digital form by trying to see if there's like an ebook version of it or whatever. So that was a really exciting find for me. And a lot of these articles should have some sort of bibliography, especially if they're citing sources. Sometimes more general summary articles won't, but if you're looking for actually like actual quotes or names, you might want to check at the articles that you find have a bibliography. All right. And so finally, I decided to just kind of look at people who are actually involved. And I remembered a name that comes up a lot in this subject is Dolores Huerta. And now Dolores Huerta is actually still alive. She is 93 years old. So I ended up looking up Dolores Huerta. And there's some information from like the Women's History Museum, which I don't know where that museum is actually. Let's figure that out. National History Museum. Let's go to About Us. Usually About Us is a really good way to find really quick information about like where the museum is, and often it's at the bottom. All right, I'm not seeing it here, so let me try hitting the main site. Or often visit us also really works well. You know, I'm not seeing where it is, so let's try Women's History Museum. Women's History Museum. And it looks like it's in Virginia, so that's probably not a local site that you can go visit. But it was worth a shot. Anytime you find a museum or a monument, you should maybe just double check to see if you actually know where it is. Oh, it looks like she's actually 91, not 93. I'm sorry about that. But I did find, when I was Googling Dolores Huerta, her website. And her website is doloreshuerta.org. Because she is a public figure, she has an organization. I believe she has a foundation as well. So I clicked on that. And I found, so it's got a backstory about her, which you can find under the About page. And it's got her birthday. And so I read the article. I was very interested in it. I don't believe it had a bibliography. But I did look up some more about, and I found that there's apparently a movie. So I clicked on that. Very excited about that because I like movies. And they do have a movie. And this movie, I did look up, is actually made by PBS. So it's a relatively reliable source. Sometimes documentaries or movies that you find on, let's say, History Channel might not always be as accurate because they are basically trying to sell... They're trying to sell you on watching your movie, while PBS is publicly funded, so they've already got your money. So they can tell you the story without trying to also sell you on it. And so it was a 2017 American documentary, and it's got all these awards, so I was very interested in the movie because it seems to be reputable. I ended up looking up where you could find the movie. It looks like it's free with Amazon Prime, but it looks like you can rent it from several sources for about $4. And it might be on some other streaming services, but that's just what my initial Google search told me. And then additionally, I decided to check out the Contact Us button. Because again, I would be interested in getting first-hand accounts. So it's going to be especially useful. And if you have any personal questions, you can actually just ask them. And sometimes especially on foundation websites, they're often going to be like media and press contacts or event speaking, which is not really what you would be looking for unless you're actually hosting an event, which I don't believe that's a topic for this National History Day. But they did have for this one, for matters not related to press or media relations or event speaking engagement requests, please use this form. And it lets you fill out your name, your email address, a message, and then there's like a little CAPTCHA to make sure that you're not a robot. And I thought this was really cool because you can really just put a nice message like, hello, to who it may concern, because it's probably not Dolores Huerta. My name is so-and-so. I'm in this grade at this school, and I'm working on my National History Day project, and I have some questions that I was hoping to get some clarification for. It also has a mailing address and phone number, which is really cool. So potentially you can actually call the Dolores Huerta Foundation or write to them and get a response. You might want to time that out, especially if you're going to do the mail, because it's probably going to take a while to get there and then actually get sorted through their mail system. But it's just a really good option. Now, the other option is, of course, back at the beginning, the author of the Contemporary Jewish Museum article, who is Christian Montoya. And so you can look her up. And so I did. And she looks like she is, you know, in San Francisco and fairly active, it seems, on social media. So it looks like you can even contact her through the museum. This is the Contemporary Jewish Museum, CJM. And you can click on that. Oh, that's her article again. Let's see if we can actually click on her name, if that'll help us out. No, it doesn't look like it. Doesn't have an email in her description. So let's try. It looks like she does have a LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is a site for basically finding jobs. And potentially the LinkedIn may have a email. Oh, she's been talking about what she's been doing lately. That's very fun. New profile badges. You can also type in just the name of the person you want to contact and either contact or email. I think this is the same LinkedIn. You may have to make a LinkedIn account to message her through LinkedIn. Let's try Emerging SF. Doesn't look like it. Well, it does look like she had an Instagram at least previously, and so maybe you can message her just using that. All right, well, I hope you guys found that interesting and showed you some kind of alternate sources that you can maybe either go visit or watch, or just some other ways of finding information that's really useful if you want to vary your sources. And honestly, this one seems to be a really good source of pictures, especially a lot of the museums that have like buttons and flyers. All right, well, I hope you guys have a good rest of your workshop, and I will see you soon.
Hey everybody, welcome to this National History Day tutorial coming to you from the Sacramento Public Library. My name is James Scott. I am a librarian and archivist here at the library. Been doing this for a while, so I'm really excited to help you. I know History Day is coming up right now. You're thinking about your topics, you're thinking about resources you might want to use, primary, secondary, tertiary. So that's why we're here at the library. So let's take a little bit of time taking a look at some of the basics and how the library can help you. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is talk about the library card. So the library card, think of it as a passport. And instead of going from country to country, it allows you to go into the library either in person or virtually and access any number of resources that we've got for you. And just by virtue of being a citizen, you have access to this stuff. So that's our catalog, that's our ebooks, our e-talking books, our databases, any number of things. Okay, so let's go ahead. I'm going to share my screen here. And go right here. And here we've got our Zoom page, but we want to go to the Sacramento Public Library. So the easiest way to do that is www.saclibrary.org. So this is our homepage. And what we're going to do is we're going to go right on down to the bottom here, and we see this purple button that says My Library Card. So if you've got a library card already, terrific, you're all set to go. If you don't, you can click here, get a library card. Oh, and by the way, it tells you few more things you can do here. So Mango Languages, the New York Times, which might be very, very helpful with your projects. Also, check out items from our Library of Things. If checking out a bass guitar is relevant to your research, you're good to go. And then also, like I mentioned, ebooks and audiobooks. So to apply for a library card, you go right here on this, click on this link, and then you fill out this form. Now you'll need your parents or guardians to go with you to co-sign for your library card in the library. But once you've got it, the world is your oyster. The National History Day competition is your oyster, and you'll have quite a lot with that library card to be able to build your research process with and come up with a really great project. So get your library card. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is accessing the catalog. The catalog is probably the most basic entry point into what the library has in our resources. So let's go ahead and I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, and here is our homepage, www.saclibrary.org. Now, to be able to search our catalog, and a catalog is basically a big database of holdings, things we've got. I would just go ahead to this upper right-hand corner. It's very convenient, and go ahead and put in my search. So me and my chums over at Sacramento State have decided that the Delano Grape Strike is what we're going to focus in on as an example. So let's go ahead and put in Delano Grape Strike. Okay, just kind of a natural language, free-flowing search. And just like that, we've got 16 hits, okay? And we've got everything from primary sources, okay, the speeches of Cesar Chavez in 1965, 66, primary player in the Grape Strike, and then any number of other sources. Now, I'd mentioned that you actually have access to ebooks. So Overdrive is one of our formats, along with Hoopla. Okay, so with that library card, you can get into those from home or anywhere you have web access. So lots of books here. Another thing you can do is you can use the power of the phrase search. So the more terms you put into a search, the fewer number of hits you're going to get, and hopefully the more precise your search will be. The fewer terms you put in, you're going to get lots of stuff, and it may be tougher to deal with. But you can also use quotes to keep those two words, grape and strike, together as a phrase. So I'm going to click on Grape Strike, and this is what I get. Oh my goodness, I actually got more hits. So I've got La Causa, the California Grape Strike, Delano, any number of hits here. And here's Philip Veracruz, Filipino leader, very, very important in the early going with the strike. So you can place a hold on this book if you wanted, and you could have it sent from Southgate to any library in Sacramento County within the public library system. So that, my friends, is the magic of the catalog. Easy to use, easy to access, and right at your fingertips. So the next thing we're going to talk about is going to be databases. So let's go ahead. I'm going to go back into sharing our screen, and we're going to go to Sacramento Public Library, our homepage right here. And to get into our databases, databases will basically be kind of like a catalog, a collection of stuff that we can search by keyword. But we're looking at excerpts out of reference books. We're looking at articles, possibly even some archival material. Ooh, that's exciting. So let's go to education, and then let's go to databases. Okay, and look at all the databases we've got. I mean, our people in collection services do an amazing job getting all of these great databases for a really reasonable cost for the city of Sacramento. So there are a few I want to focus in on. I mean, you can go ahead and hop into databases like African American Experience, the American Mosaic, terrific for the African American experience in our country. You can go into magazines and newspapers to find information on a given topic when it comes to popular writing, also academic writing. But what I want to focus in on is this really cool virtual reference library, which is powered by Gale. It takes a second to get going, but look at all the access you've got. So you've got access to biographical information. You've got access to info on global issues, world history, US history. And what these are going to give you, again, they're going to give you a variance of sources. It could be an entire book. It could be an article. Could be lots of other things. So let's go ahead. I want to take a look at, because I'm really excited, I'm an archivist, at this database called Gale Primary Sources, Archives Unbound. And of course, when we're making an argument, when we have a research question or a research problem, one of the best ways to answer that question and tackle that topic is through the power of the primary source, the words of historical actors from that event. From that time. So let's go ahead and put in some keywords, right? Delano Grape Strike. We're just going to shoot from the hip, see what comes up here. And what I see, wow, just like that. Oh, like I said, we've got a book right here. Oh my goodness. And we actually have access to manuscripts from archives. Are you kidding me? So these are really the essential building blocks to putting together a good, solid research report. These are the kinds of things that professors like Chloe use and all of her colleagues. So let's go to, oh, here we go. The Delano Grape Strike, clippings 1965 to 1966. Let's see what we've got from Wayne State University. So I'm going to click right here. And oh my goodness, it's a folder. Wow, how archival. And I can click and look at what we've got in these clippings. We've got, it looks like, content out of a magazine from December 1965 that has some pretty good looking information and possibly even some quotes, which of course are primary sources, right? So anyway, databases, Gale Primary Sources, a great place to go. You can also go ahead and hop back into Gale, the virtual reference library, and look at US history in context, world history in context, biography in context, any number of ways to find good information out of our databases. Okay, so here I am again, I'm back, and let's go ahead and take a look at the power of the newspaper. Of course, in Sacramento, we're all about the Sacramento Bee. Let me go ahead and share my screen here again, and let's go back to our homepage, right? Boom, there we go, www.saclibrary.org. Memorize that webpage. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go to books and media, boom, right here. And then we're going to go to magazines and newspapers. And newspapers are great because they basically follow the timeline of history. They are the voice of that event, that person that's going on, that we want to go ahead and try to understand a little bit better. So let's go down here. Oh, what's that? That's the Sacramento Bee right there. So to take a look at the Sacramento Bee, I'm going to circumvent these links and go right to access the archives. Okay, and here's my search box, and I'm going to go ahead and stick with Grape Strike because that seemed to work out pretty well. I'm going to do a phrase search because we don't want grape and strike broken up. And then I'm going to put in a modifier just to be a little bit more precise and put in Delano because that's really what I'm interested in. So I'm going to click here. I'm going to wait because I'm patient. And boom, there we go. So we've got about 170 hits. Wow, that's great. And I can also sort according to, do I want the newest? Do I want the best match? Do I want the oldest? I think I'm going to go with oldest because I want to start with what's going on, hopefully in 1965. Would you look at that? So here I am, October 19th, 1965. And what I've got is I basically have a facsimile of the article as it appears in the newspaper. And in this case, that's the Sacramento Bee. Okay. And what do I have? I have an article, Pastor Disobeys Order in Grape Strike, Faces Trial. So, wow, this gives us some insight into an incident relative to that strike. Now, I want to go back to my results and see what else I can find that might be interesting to me. Another thing we can do, since we know that there are big time historical actors, I'm going to put in Chavez, because we know that Cesar Chavez was a big player there. Also Dolores Huerta, Philip Veracruz, Leroy Chatfield is another person who was really prominent at that time. Union Aid will talk on Delano Grape Strike. Oh, so we know that there's a speech coming up. Maybe we can find the text of that speech. Of course, we found that book earlier that's going to have some really good stuff. So Cesar Chavez, director of National Farm Workers Association, will explain the Delano Grape Strike tomorrow at Sutter Junior High. My goodness, that is in Sacramento. Amazing. So anyway, we've got all of this great content. We can follow this timeline. We can find kind of what folks were up to, what these historic actors were doing, and then hopefully find some really good quotes out of these articles from folks, whether that be Huerta, Chavez, Chatfield, Veracruz, any number of people. Oh, also quotes from those who own the means of production, right? Those from management, and see what they might have to say to sort of present both sides of the argument. So really easy to get into. Of course, you got to have that library card, and a great way to know what's going on. Now, another newspaper we're going to go ahead and talk about, because it's really important that you take advantage of it, is going to be the New York Times. Okay, so you will have to set up an account with each search you do, but it's really great because it's going to give you coverage from the very origins of the New York Times all the way up to the current day. It is the paper of record. It is the old gray lady, they call it. All the news that's fit to print ends up in the New York Times. So my guess is that if we're going to look at the Delano Grape Strike, you're going to find information in there. Okay, so we've gone over, say stop sharing. We're going to go, we've gone over newspapers. We've gone over how to get items out of the catalog like this. And we've gone over databases. And then we've also talked about how to get a library card. Now, if you would like to get in touch with me, you certainly can. And you can come into the place where I work, which is the special collections of the Sacramento Public Library. We do really great with California topics and of course, Sacramento topics. But here are the hours that we're open. This is how you get in touch with me, my email, and also my phone number, and also a little picture of where I work. So it's been a joy reaching out to you. I look forward to helping you. I wish you all the luck in the world on what I'm sure is going to be a really great project that you're going to do for this year's National History Day competition. So with that, this is James Scott from the Sacramento Public Library. I'm signing out and hope to see you in the Sacramento room.